Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. We are just 2 weekends away from the Belgian Grand Prix where the second half of the season gets underway, and we know full well that Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton are not going to be winning any championships this year, but certainly as a team and as a driver they are taking steps in the right direction over the last several months or so. Toto Wolff is saying that look, Lewis Hamilton can go on to win 8 World Championships, why not 9, why not 10, after Hamilton has indicated he does intend to continue for longer than some initially thought. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to discuss today. Firstly, just wanted to mention this from Franz Tost and Alpha Tauri, mentioning that yes, they have failed spectacularly in terms of living up to expectations. They had a couple of decent results. I think they've now gone, 5 races in a row without scoring points. Alpha Tauri, they had a decent time out in Baku. I think Gasly was 5th, and even Hamilton had to work very hard to make those 2 positions up over Tsunoda and Gasly in that race, but in the end he did, and I think Gasly was 5th at the end of the day after, of course, both Ferraris failed to finish. But yes, on the whole, Alpha Tauri incredibly underwhelming. Does raise the question what Pierre Gasly is thinking, because we know that he wants to leave if he can to go to Red Bull, but that's not going to happen. Even the Alpine seats that he might have wanted, Helmut Marko has said yes, there's no clause that allows him to do that. He is stuck there for effectively the next season at least. So we'll see where Gasly ends up. Of course, there has been some question over the last 12 months or so when Hamilton retires, who's going to take his seat. Ocon, of course, is kind of a Mercedes driver for Alpine, but also maybe Gasly. Like, there are some other options out there, of course. I think in reality, George Russell is the guy that should be taking Hamilton's place, but of course, at least is the #1 driver type thing, right? But look, they're going to still need another driver when he does retire, but that might not be so soon, as we shall look at. Also, some further questions being raised about Mick Schumacher's future. No guarantees at all. He's going to be with Haas next year. Not sure this is the best idea, to be honest, if they get rid of Mick Schumacher, just because he's been pretty solid for the second half of the first half of the season. He has the Ferrari connections, has the sponsorship connections. Like, I don't know, I'd be surprised if they got rid of him, especially because he's been performing better than he was in the first part of the year, but still, it's far from guarantees. I think after the summer break, they will continue to evaluate what they want their driver lineup to look like next year. Let's talk Mercedes then. Thought this is pretty cool. Stoffel Van Dorn for Mercedes. They've only been in Formula E for maybe 3 years now, and they've won it the last 2 years. Nick de Vries won it last year, and this time it's Van Dorn winning it for Mercedes again, and they're dipping out of there, I'm pretty sure, this year. So kind of a classic Mercedes behavior. Join a Formula Racing series, win it for a couple of seasons, and then get straight out of there. But cool for Van Dorn, honestly, after the career that he's had. Like, I think he's 30 years old now or something, and still winning the Formula E World Championship. De Vries, I believe, was down in 9th, and there was some talk about, because everyone's been saying, okay, could De Vries get the Williams seat possibly? Most of the talk has been around Logan Sargent, or it was meant to be Piastri replacing Latifi. That doesn't look like it's happening anymore, of course, and therefore De Vries was a talking point. He was actually replacing Hamilton, I think, was it at the French Grand Prix, right, in free practice. But yeah, he didn't have the greatest time, especially in qualifying this year in Formula E, so that might put some doubt on that, especially if Logan Sargent performs well in the upcoming rounds of Formula 2. But speaking of Mercedes, one of the only things they're actually leading in this season is double points finishes. They have the most double points finishes of any team out of the 13 races. I guess the one that they missed was Imola, where Hamilton was stuck behind Gasly the whole race in 14th or whatever it was, and of course Silverstone, where Russell had the first lap incident. But every race apart from that, they have scored double points, right? They're on some pretty good point streak, especially Hamilton. I'm pretty sure Hamilton's on the second highest race point streak right now, just behind Verstappen, I think. But I mean, yeah, these are the numbers. Not particularly pretty for Ferrari, especially. Alpine have the same amount as Ferrari, which is quite something actually to think about, to be honest. Now, like, Toto Wolff has given some thoughts on the way things have been going recently. He gave an interview on what he thought about Abu Dhabi, saying he still thinks about it every day, sporting fairness, all this type of stuff. Like, look, we've seen it all before, but I thought what was interesting here is about the fact that, look, Hamilton could well have delivered the 8th world title on that day. That was not the case, and it's obviously been a very difficult few months and year, really, for Hamilton, because he comes off the deep frustration and everything associated with Abu Dhabi, and then coming into next year wanting revenge, and then obviously the car isn't able to deliver. So it's obviously been a difficult time for Hamilton and Mercedes in general. They are starting to get back to that point, though, and Wolff says that, like, look, not just 8 world championships, but even more could be possible, right? He says that, okay, look, you missed out on the 8th world championship, the 7th is still a great achievement, tying with Michael Schumacher's record, but look, if they can get back to giving Lewis a good car, they can deliver more championships, right? And it is kind of a measure of what Wolff thinks, Hamilton is capable of in future seasons, because the start of this season obviously was not great for Hamilton at all. People were saying, I think even, was it Jackie Stewart or someone said Hamilton should just have retired. I think he's shown the last few races that, there's no need for this guy to retire. Still a, top 2 driver on the grid, I think, right now. Top 3 at absolute minimum. But that's the thing. Hamilton made an implication the other day that he's intending to compete far beyond, potentially, his 2023 contract end. He's meant to be competing this season and next season. And after that, many people thought, you know what, he might give it 2 more goes to try and get the 8th. And if he doesn't get it, he might step away. And even like the idea that if he does get the 8th at some point, will he just retire immediately, effectively? Toto Wolff doesn't seem to believe that's even the case, as he says here. Like, of course, he would have been the only driver to get the 8th world titles, but he can be equally proud of having 7 titles, just like Schumacher. I think that achievement is also historic and important, but the goal is to get back to the right performance soon. And if we get back to providing Lewis with a good car, why only think about 8 world titles? Why not 10? So quite the statement really here from Wolff, saying like, look, we believe we're going in the right direction such that we can get back to the performance level of the car that can deliver not just 1 more world title, but, if Hamilton's going to get 3 world titles more, he's going to have to deliver them in the next, 4 or 5 years before he retires. So, some good confidence, I suppose, from Mercedes that they can deliver a car for 2023, 4 or 5, whatever, that can deliver, world title winning performance level for a few years. Now, like 10 seems, like, in fairness, if you look at Hamilton's career, he arguably could have had 10. Look at some of the seasons that he failed to win, but I think he'll certainly want to get the 8th, and Mercedes seem incredibly confident that not only can they achieve that, but also Hamilton as a driver can achieve that as well, saying, obviously it was a difficult start to the season, not easy to accept reality, not a pleasant experience, but saying after the first few races he got his special spirit back. He was totally focused on getting the car into the top positions, and even when we went through the difficult days, he was always the most positive person in the team. So interesting stuff. I think Hamilton admitted in an interview with Heikki Kovalainen that, at times he wasn't necessarily the best teammate. He was, getting frustrated at times, but they've kind of bounced back to a certain degree. He's on, a 5 podium streak in a row, with the optimism within the Mercedes camp that not only are they understanding the car better than anyone else, but also they're progressing faster than any of the other top teams, especially with this TD and especially with the, potential new regulations for next year that some say it might be more beneficial to Mercedes than the other top teams. Could be a different story. This kind of all aligns really with what Hamilton was saying a few days ago in this Vanity Fair interview when he said, look, I'm still enjoying Formula 1. I'm still getting challenged by it. I still love doing it. Still love driving on the track. Not on, I think he even said he hates driving on the roads because there's too many variables. On the track, that's where he feels at home, and he doesn't want to step away anytime soon. So he was indicating he could go far beyond the kind of penciled in retirement date people had at the end of 2023. People even wondered whether he would return for this season, of course. Turns out he is here and might be here for a good 3-4 more years, especially if Toto Wolff thinks he can get 3 world titles. That's going to be a difficult feat, of course. 1 more would be incredibly impressive. But of course, the car needs to be competitive if that is to be the case. These are the remaining 9 races of the season, and as Mercedes point out, so the Belgian Grand Prix is coming up on the 28th of August. That's when the race is in a couple of weekends' time. Then they go to Zandvoort, then Monza. That's a triple header, actually. Then all the way to Singapore. That might be where we start to see some of these, rear wings come into effect. They might have copied Aston Martin, for example. Then Suzuka, the US Grand Prix at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, Mexico, Sao Paulo and Interlagos, and then Abu Dhabi, of course, finishing out the season. So 9 more races to go. 13 have gone so far. The first 4-ish were kind of write-offs for, first 4 or 5 really were kind of write-offs for Mercedes and Hamilton especially. So I'm sure he wants to keep his streak up of getting a win. I think getting a pole position as well, I think would put Hamilton in a great mental spot going into next year. I think, look, if he finishes out the year strong and the car continues to develop in the direction that it currently is, then he'll probably take some good confidence into next season that they can push on and have a car that's actually capable of winning a world championship or both world championships once again. But intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. And that's the thing. Soon enough, we go back to Spa, for we don't really know how many more times Spa will be raced, right? Because, I mean, look, the rumour has it that next season, Spa might not even be on the calendar because of accessibility reasons and stuff like this. It's not an ideal track in terms of location. It's a beautiful track, of course, to drive and to race on, but not really from some of the other infrastructure type perspectives and kind of like the logistical side of things. It's not ideal. I think the most recent rumour I saw was that it's going to stay for at least 1 more year, and then after that, it's going to be maybe on a rotation where it comes and goes, or like, I'm not exactly sure what the plan is there, but hopefully at least what could be this season the last ever Spa Grand Prix for quite some time, we at least get a proper race window and it doesn't get completely rained off. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you were new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.